the late 13th century, Scotland was a land under siege. Its people, proud and fiercely independent, faced increasing domination from England's ruthless King Edward I, a monarch so determined to control Scotland that he became known as the Hammer of the Scots. After the Scottish king died without a clear heir, political chaos engulfed the nation. Edward saw opportunity. Claiming authority over Scotland's succession, he imposed English influence, stripped Scottish nobles of power, and stationed occupying forces across the land. To many Scots, this was not governance, it was oppression. Heavy taxation, military occupation, and brutal punishments became part of daily life. Scottish resistance simmered, and from this tension emerged a man whose name would become legend: William Wallace. Born around 1270, Wallace was not a king, nor a noble of great political power. He was a lesser nobleman, raised in a violent era where survival demanded strength. Little is known with certainty about his youth, but Wallace grew into a towering warrior, educated, skilled in combat, and deeply loyal to Scotland. As English control tightened, Wallace's personal hatred for occupation intensified. According to tradition, the murder of his wife, allegedly by English soldiers, transformed his anger into rebellion. Whether myth or reality, Wallace's uprising became undeniable. He struck back with ferocity. Wallace began by leading small-scale attacks against English forces, assassinating officials, and rallying local Scots to resist. His rebellion spread quickly. For the oppressed people of Scotland, Wallace became more than a fighter. He became hope. What began as isolated resistance soon ignited into full rebellion, and England would soon learn. Scotland was not yet broken. Wallace's campaign escalated rapidly. Through guerrilla warfare, surprise attacks, and relentless determination, he disrupted English authority across Scotland. His charisma and battlefield courage attracted growing numbers of followers: farmers, clansmen, displaced nobles, warriors united under a common cause: freedom. In 1297, Wallace joined forces with Andrew Moray, another Scottish rebel leader. Together, they prepared for one of the most important battles in Scottish history, the Battle of Stirling Bridge. English forces, vastly superior in numbers, approached with confidence. Their army was professional, heavily armed, and battle-tested. But Wallace understood the terrain. Stirling Bridge was narrow. Only a limited number of English troops could cross at once. As English soldiers advanced, Wallace waited. Then, at the perfect moment, he attacked. Scottish forces overwhelmed the divided English army. Chaos erupted. Many English troops were trapped, slaughtered, or drowned. It was a devastating defeat for England and a stunning victory for Scotland. Wallace's triumph transformed him overnight. He was knighted and declared Guardian of Scotland. For the first time, England faced a unified and emboldened Scottish rebellion. Wallace was no longer merely a rebel. He was the face of a nation's resistance. But victory brought greater danger, because now, King Edward himself would respond. Humiliated by Stirling Bridge, Edward I prepared massive retaliation. This was no mere suppression campaign. This was war. In 1298, Edward personally led a formidable English army northward. His forces were larger, better equipped, and determined to crush Wallace permanently. The decisive confrontation came at the Battle of Falkirk. Wallace positioned his infantry in defensive circular formations known as schiltrons, dense spear formations designed to repel cavalry. Initially, the Scots held firm, but Edward's longbowmen changed everything. English archers unleashed devastating volleys into Scottish ranks. The schiltrons, though strong against cavalry, were vulnerable to sustained ranged attacks. Scottish formations collapsed. The English cavalry surged forward. Wallace's army was shattered. Though he escaped, Falkirk was a major defeat. Wallace resigned as Guardian of Scotland, though he never surrendered. Instead, He continued resistance through smaller campaigns and diplomatic efforts, even seeking foreign alliances. But Scotland's struggle grew increasingly fractured. Some nobles sought compromise, others betrayed the cause. Wallace remained steadfast. For England, Wallace had become more than a military threat. He was a symbol, and symbols are dangerous. Edward wanted him captured at any cost. For years, Wallace evaded English forces. He remained a hunted man, a ghost of rebellion. But in 1305, Wallace was betrayed by Scottish knight Sir John de Menteith, loyal to England. Captured near Glasgow, Wallace was delivered to Edward's authorities. He was taken to London in chains. There, Wallace was charged with treason against the English crown. His response was legendary. He could not be a traitor, because he had never sworn allegiance to Edward. The trial was little more than political theater. The sentence was brutal. Wallace was condemned to be hanged, drawn, and quartered, one of medieval England's most horrific executions. On August 23, 1305, Wallace faced death with extraordinary defiance. He was dragged through London's streets, publicly tortured, and executed. His body was dismembered, his head displayed on London Bridge, his limbs sent across Britain as warnings. Edward intended Wallace's death to crush Scottish resistance forever. Instead, he created a martyr. Wallace's execution only deepened Scottish hatred for English rule. His sacrifice became immortal, and Scotland's fight was far from over. Though William Wallace did not live to see Scotland's independence, his rebellion changed history. His resistance inspired future leaders, most notably Robert the Bruce. Just years after Wallace's death, Robert the Bruce would carry Scotland forward, culminating in the historic Scottish victory at Bannockburn in 1314. Wallace's courage helped ignite that path. He became the embodiment of resistance against tyranny, a man who challenged one of Europe's most powerful kings, not for conquest, not for wealth, but for freedom. Over centuries, Wallace evolved from historical figure into national legend. Poems, chronicles, monuments, and films immortalized him. Though myths often blur reality, the core truth remains. William Wallace stood when submission seemed inevitable. He fought when defeat seemed certain, and he died, refusing to kneel. Today, Wallace remains one of history's most enduring symbols of rebellion, patriotism, and sacrifice. His story is not merely Scotland's, it is universal. The story of one man's refusal to surrender to oppression. And though Edward sought to erase him, William Wallace became eternal. Not as a king, but as the warrior who defied an empire.